to this session. Here we're going to get a Google Workspace set up, completed inside the BitTitan MigrationWiz console, and we're going to be migrating some users across to Microsoft 365. So let's jump in and see how that can be done. When we first look at the MigrationWiz screen, you're presented with this. I'm just going to hit the Start Migrating Now so we can set up projects. Now the way things are done in here is it's all done based on projects, and a project is essentially a batch of people. So what we have is a work group down the side, and that's where all our projects then get listed, and all based on the different customers. You can have multiple customers in there. So I know that sounds a lot of information just to take it in one go, but I think you'll see it a lot clearer as I start to create this account for this Planium migration. So what we do is we just hit Create Project, and you can see there's lots of different types of projects we can do. The hybrid exchange or the mailbox collaboration, which is the Teams migrations. But we're going to use mailbox project here because it is a Google G Suite or Google Workspace into Microsoft 365. So we put in here the project name and the customer. So we'll set up a new customer, and we'll put in here that is the Planium.com. So, and select our country, US. We can leave all these others as optional and hit save on that. Now, when we do our next step, it's going to start talking about source and target. Now, the source is obviously where the data is coming from, but that's where you get to set up what type of project it really is. So if we say we want a new endpoint, because they're considered to be endpoints, we can say that's going to be the Planium Google Workspace. But we need to then specify the Gmail API, where it's coming from, and it's going to ask us for this JSON file. Now, we haven't done that setup yet, so we're going to get to a point here where we can't go any further until we select that file and put that in. So we do need some assistance from that. I'd suggest we go and look at the help articles to say, okay, what do we need to set up inside the Google Workspace to allow the MigrationWiz product to connect in, grab all the information out, and what account is it using, all of that. So let's go ahead and do that. We'll leave this one open like this, but we'll jump into the Google side. So to get that information, we're going to look at the Help Center inside MigrationWiz. We'll just have that open on a different tab in here. We go and say Visit Help Center, and in here it's going to tell us everything we need to know about the setup for this migration. So we're going to go into this Perform a Migration and have a look at these different sections. We're looking for the Google Workspace, which will be this guy here, and then the Gmail API going into Exchange Online, which is this one. And this really gives us everything step by step on what we need to do to get this running. And you can see one of the first things that we need to do is prepare the source, which is this Google Cloud Platform, in which case we'll go into that. We'll enable the APIs for the service account and create that customer tenant service account, get that done, and set up the scopes so it can have the permissions to do what it needs to do. So you can see everything is laid out in here. We're just going to follow this, but I'm going to do it right now and show you how that is to be done. So we're going to open up the Google Cloud Platform. Let's put that into here and log in accordingly. Now that's using the link off of that Help Center. So this is what takes us straight into this. Now you'll notice that we have a previously created project from another migration we've done, so we're going to ignore that one. But we're going to set up a new one. So we go into the project items here, and we'll say New Project, and give it a name. So we'll call this one MigrationWiz. We've got the organization right, the location is correct, so we just go ahead and hit Create on that. And that'll go off in the background and create that project for us. And once that's done, we get notified accordingly. We say Select Project, and that will change the scope of all this, obviously the screen and everything we're seeing, into this project. So what we're essentially doing here is we're adding in the APIs that we want this project to be able to connect to. We do that by going into the library. And in here, we've got a huge library of all the different APIs that we can use, but there's some specific ones we're after. And it's a lot easier if we just type them in. But it's really firstly, the one we need here is the calendar API. So really just do a search for it and you grab it and enable it. And that enables it inside that project for you. So once that's done, it all happens very quickly. But once that's done, it'll pop back up into here and then we can just run back into the library again. And we just add some more. So we need the main Gmail API. Yeah, bring that in, enable that. Need 3 more after that. So in here, library, we need the people API. This one. Enable that too. I'm not pausing anything as I'm doing it. This is all real time, so you can see exactly what it looks like when we add these in. But we also need the contacts. This one here, contacts API. Enable that. And one last one too, which is going to be the admin SDK, which is this one here. Enable that one as well. So once we've got the APIs set up, we'd say, okay, these are the APIs that this project is going to connect to. The second part is to create an account that has access to that project. We do that in a slightly different area. So we're going to go up to the top here and we go to the IAM and admin, and we're going into the service accounts, which is in here. We're going to create a new service account in here. Like that. We'll call this one MigrationWiz admin and create and continue. We'll select role for it. It's going to be the owner. And we just hit continue on that. And then we just hit done. We don't need to do anything else in there. And you can see that's created that service account for us. Now we get to create the key, which is that JSON file that we're going to be downloading. So on this account, we need to go to the manage keys. And we're going to say add a key and create a new one. And you can see there, JSON, that's good. Create that, and that will save it onto the machine. Now that is the important file we need to put into the project setup that we were talking about previously. Now the last step in here is to just move this bar across to the right slightly. We need to copy out this client ID. So we're going to grab that, copy it to clipboard. I'm going to use that file we had earlier, just a bit of a scratch pad there, drop that in there. We'll need that in a little bit later on. Now we need to jump back into here, the admin center. We need to give that API some rights inside the Google Workspace environment. So we do that under the security tab here. And you can see under access and data controls, we've got API controls. What we're looking for in here is the domain-wide delegation. Under this, we hit add new, and it's asking us what the client ID is. If you remember from previously, that's what we need. And that just binds everything together. So we'll paste that in. Now the OAuth scopes in that comma delimited format, we get those from that help center article. So I'm just going to go in here and grab that, copy and paste. Now, looks like it's only one, but if you go back, you'll see it's actually all of them. Go back quite a long way. And we hit authorize on that. That will add them in. As you can see there, it's added in. Plus 9 more you can see to the MigrationWiz admin user there. So after that, we can just view what we've done, but that is essentially all we need to do for the security side of the setup. We'll jump back into this endpoint creation. Now we've got a JSON file we can actually do something with. So as I select file, I put it in here, that, and the admin, we'll use the admin at admin.com. Read everything in. As you can see, it's happy with that. And we'll carry on to our next step, which is the destination side. So this is where we put the details around the tenant, the Office 365 tenant. So we just hit new once again, and we'll call this one ANM M365, and that will be Microsoft 365, and we'll give it the admin username and the credentials, obviously, like so. And there we go. Now for that, and that's accepted those, so we will carry on and go to our summary page, which will save the project, and pretty much we're ready to go. Saving it in there, and it will take us across to the main screen. There we go. So what we have on the left-hand side here, you can see the projects that are set up, which are, and the type of project. So you can see G Suite to 365, and currently there's no items in the project. Obviously, we haven't added any users in there yet. So this is where we start to think about what users we want to bring into this migration project. So to add the users in, we could do it on the quick add, which is really adding a source and a destination. Yeah, great if you've got a couple of users, but not if you've got hundreds or thousands of them. So we're going to use this bulk add, which really takes a CSV file and drops it in here for us. And to do that, the best way is to really go back to our spreadsheet, which we had about what batches and things we're going to be doing. And what we need to specify in here is a source address and a destination address. The rest of the data can stay, that's totally fine. So what I'm going to do is add in another column here and label it. So we'll call this one destination. We might want to call this one source. Now in this migration, it's actually quite simple because they're going to be the same as going across. But this way you could map different things. If Russell wanted his last name in there, then you'd make those changes accordingly for the source and destination. Now, what we need to do though is we need to download that CSV file, which is this one here, download the sample, and that will look like this. If I bring that up for you. There we go. Now, you can see what it's expecting in the file to do the import is a source email, and if there's a login and password for those, and obviously for the destination as well, you can put those in. These are the two columns we need to populate. So really all we're going to be doing with that is taking the source from here and paste it there. Likewise on this side here, take that, paste it there. So that really does create the, let's tidy that up for you, the import file for MigrationWiz. Now, over the years when I've been doing these projects, I have a whole ton of macros in the background that I would take that migration sheet and have buttons I could press to do exports of different batches and all things like that. This is obviously not the scope for this video, but there's plenty you can do to automate all of this sort of spreadsheet work when you're working with these import files and like. Or, I mean, you could even do it off a base SQL database as well. The key thing is you're batching up your users accordingly and creating a CSV file that you can bring into each project or each batch in the MigrationWiz console. How you do it, entirely up to you, but as long as you end up with a valid CSV file, then you are clearly good to go. So we'll save this one and drop that one away. And we will do the select file here, and you can see there's our file, and bring that in. Now with this batching here, you can go in and change them. If there's anything slightly wrong with any names, feel free to edit this. Clearly 3 users is a very small amount, but you might have a lot in there. You can go through and check and make sure they're mapped accordingly. But as soon as you've done that though, just hit the save. And that will save them and bring them into the MigrationWiz project. Pretty quick, and there we are, we're ready. Let's then talk about some of these different migration events that we're going to be doing here, because you can see here from the console, we're ready to go with this migration, that's fine. You see here, user migration bundle active as no. Now that depends on the licenses that you've purchased to do your migration. You've either in MigrationWiz, you've either got the standard MigrationWiz mail license, which will mean that it is just doing the mail, and that is completely separate to the user migration bundle, which includes all the deployment pro and the other functions that you're migrating as well. Now, if I were to try and kick off, this isn't a good example. If I try and kick off this migration, as you can see, let's say I go straight to a full migration, you'll see that it will start to work, but it's talking about the license here. My license is a mismatch. Because I purchased the user migration bundle, it's not going to let me run a single migration on here because that's a different license code. So what we do with that is we will tag them all and we'll do the apply licenses, apply the user migration bundle. This, as you can see here, we go in and it's saying 3. It's good. We apply those and they'll show up as being a yes. Now that activates these accounts so they can be used in things like Deployment Pro and the like. But when that comes up with a yes, then you'll see it'll allow us to do these migration work. So that's a little trick before you get started with these migrations. But while that's coming through, I want to talk about these other things that are happening. So when I'll start here, if I tick one person, I have the start. You can see here we've got these items. Now we would run through these and you can say assessment is going to be looking at what is there in the source. But the one I'm interested in here is verify credentials. This will make sure that the credentials that we put in with our JSON key, our service account, and the M365, everything is good to go. Now, because we're doing it at a tenant level, not at a user level, this will then be relevant for everybody that we migrate. And our trial migration does like a dummy run. It doesn't migrate anything. It just attempts to say, is this going to work for us? Which is, a good thing to do when we first get started. But these two here is what I want to talk about: pre-stage and full migration. Pre-stage is what we do when we are getting the mailbox up to the point where we can say we want to migrate everything apart from the last 30 days. If these mailboxes are quite large, we want to make sure that when we do our cutover on say Friday night or Sunday afternoon, whatever we choose to do, if you just run a full migration at that point, we have no idea really how long that's going to take. The idea behind a pre-stage is making that initial copy right up as far up to date as we possibly can to make the full migration very, very quick. So the full migration is like just the tail end of the migration, making sure that everything's brought over. So what we do with that pre-stage is we make sure that we set the dates and things accordingly, and then it makes the full migration at the end very, very quick and easy. So remembering that a pre-stage migration does nothing in terms of affecting the user and the ability to run. Everything on this migration is still pointed at Google Workspace. The MX records are still pointing there. They're getting mail coming in there continuously. So the pre-stage is what we do way ahead of time and make sure that's all good to go so we can do our full migration tasks afterwards. So for this one, the first thing we're going to do is do the verify credentials. And we say, yep, we'll do that. And that will go away. And you can see in the submitted stage and making sure everything's done. As you can see in the background, that user migration bundle has taken effect. So that's all good to go as well. But we really make sure that the credentials are good. So we'll just let that run through and come back in a second. So after a refresh, you can see that our verification has failed. Now this I wanted to show you because, like I say, my videos are always going to be real world. Remember when we did our source setup, we did all the Google side. We did nothing on the Office 365 side. There's nothing done there. So when we look at this error that we're getting, it's going to say migration failed when checking destination credentials, auto discover. And you think, well, what does that really mean? What it really means is the fact that we're trying to authenticate with that admin account to do the migration, but that admin account has got MFA on it, which is obviously not good. And also basic auth is deprecated in this tenant. We have to use modern auth instead. So we've got quite a bit to do to make sure this tenant can accept data from a third party like MigrationWiz. So there's some articles about exactly what you need to do. And let's just jump over to those in the Help Center now. So in that preparing destination article, we can see the impersonation and delegation that needs to be set up with the admin account we're going to be using. Now what I'm going to do is something slightly different here as well. I'm going to be creating a migration account inside Microsoft 365 just for the purpose of migration. And then we can use that and we just remove it at the end. So let's go across and create that account now. If I won't bore you with that, I'll just do it and come back. So there we go, as if by magic, we have a migwiz@planium.com, which I've also given global admin to. Now we need to go back into the PowerShell in here, and we need to do a little bit of work in here. Now all we're doing in here is just run one command, which is enable organization customization. Now if it comes back with an error, it means that it's already been done. As you can see, yes, it has already been enabled for this. It's just something we need to do in the back end so that the impersonation of that account can work. Now you can see in the help here, it's saying that we don't need to do anything past that with management role assignments and the like. It will do that itself. But we do need to, here in the 365 as a destination, we need to go into the advanced options and set that up. So let's just go back in and do that in here. And we'll go back up to the edit project into the advanced options, and we will put that in. And that is kept under the source and destination tab. And you can see there, yeah, look, it's already ticked using impersonation to authenticate. So that is all well and good. Now, if we jump back into there, you can see really what it's talking about with what it needs to do around that. And you can see all the different processes that need to run. So the next stage with this is to make sure that we have the 2FA disabled for that account. It does require that. You can see here 2FA is not supported at this time. We do need to set that up so that it's excluded. So let's just jump back into the Azure, because we already have those policies set up that enforces it on every single user. So we do need to exclude that MigrationWiz, and that's why we like that MigrationWiz account, because it means we can exclude it from those policies quite easily. So let's do that. We'll go into the Azure side here and into Azure Active Directory. And what I'm after here is where those settings are for the conditional access. So we go into security, and under conditional access, you can see these are the policies that we were talking about previously. So what I'm going to do is require MFA for admins. It's turned on, and I want to go into the users here, and I want to go into the exclusions and pick out a particular user, which is going to be MigrationWiz service account. And nope, we have that set up. We're good, and I will turn it off. We've got the all users one as well. Just going to make sure that one is excluded there as well. So the E5 demo one is. I'm going to add in service account as well. Done. Save that. Okay, so that'll take a few minutes to take effect, but that is essentially done there. Let's jump back to the MigrationWiz now, because I also do need to go back into the project itself. Hit that project. You can see from a destination settings, you see we've still got this user in here. I want to change that. Edit that endpoint, and we're going to be putting in the MigrationWiz account. The password, obviously, like that. For that, and that is done. Obviously, you save project. It'll just jump back into here. Now we don't want it to use the basic auth. We want it to use modern auth for this migration work. So let's go into the help again, because it does talk quite nicely about what this is. Now this is exactly the error that we got when we did the testing of the credentials. So what it's saying here is that we do need to have the account excluded from MFA and conditional access policies, which we've done, and we want to go into the using it with modern auth, because we can't turn off we can't turn on basic auth. It's turned off now permanently. So we need to follow these instructions to add the modern auth and put it in as basically as an app registration, and get those into the tenant as well. So we go back to our Azure AD dashboard there. What I'm interested in AD, I'm looking for the app registrations, which is right here. And we're going to start a new registration. And we'll give it a name, MigrationWiz app. Now for this, we just say accounts in the organization directory only, but we do need to put in a public client here. And copy that from those instructions that it's giving us on the help article, which is that one there. As you can see, if I just jump back to that very quickly, you'll see that's really what I'm doing here. And once we've done that, we'll then hit register. There it goes. Now that's not quite the end of it. We've got to go back to those into this app registration. Now what we need to find is the client ID and the tenant ID. So we're going to grab those out. So the whole thing there. Now the reason I'm not doing it from the copy to clipboard, I'm grabbing the whole thing, and you'll see is that I want to have them so I know what this relates to. Grab that one, and I want this one here as well. Put it in there. There we go. So that's good. So next stage, we want to go to the authentication tab here and go right down the bottom, and we want to be turning on public flows and saving that. That's the stage there. Now we're going to add some API permissions in. So API permissions, these are the standard ones, and we're going to go to add a permission, and we're going to find apps by organization users. And have a look for the Office 365 Exchange Online. There it is. And we are going to be selecting that with delegated permissions. And we're going to go and find EWS. There it is there. And turn that one on. And hit the add permissions. Then we need to grant the admin consent and say, yep. And that will change these to a yes there. Oh, sorry. Put the tick box there for the yes. And really, that's pretty much it in there. So we can go back into the dashboard and have a look at the different app registrations that we see. And you'll see there's our MigrationWiz app. Okay, so now we jump back into the MigrationWiz console. And we want to be going up to the edit project, advanced options again. And we're going to add some in. We just go to any of these and hit a plus, and we get the extra one there. And what we want to put in there, because we're doing it at a destination level, we are going to put these two in here. Again, cut and pasting out of the help article. But here we've got Modern Auth client ID import. Now remember, I saved those, didn't I, in here? So there's our client ID. Grab that, copy that out, paste it in there. And the tenant ID, which is this one here, copy that into there, like so, and save that accordingly. So that should give us everything you need. So let's go in now, hit the tick here, hit start, and we'll do a verify credentials, and we'll see if everything is tied together nicely now. After just waiting a few minutes for that to check out, there we are, completed, and verification is now done. So it looks like we are set up, ready to get migrating. What we do first is I'm going to kick off just Russell, and this is part of the nicety around having these sort of tools. I know that can be the setup we've just done may appear to be a little bit extra, but to be honest, it is actually quite easy to get done, and you get into a bit of a flow with it, and you can get it done pretty quickly. And of course, once you set it up on the tenant, you can use that, those tenant IDs and things in all the different batches. And so it's just a one-off thing you've got to do. But what you get in terms of the benefits here is, let me just show you what you can do with these two items here. Because what you've got in the project is the advanced options. Now, we touched on this very briefly before. You saw these screens, but really there's a lot to it. There's a lot you can do in these here. And one of them is filtering. We can say in the whole migration, we just want to migrate things that are newer than a certain date. You might have a huge amount of data and say, look, guys, we're only bringing over the last 2 years worth of email. Then obviously we do this, set it at the project level, and and then it's good for every single migration on that particular project. And you can also say items older than a specific date. So if you want to go the other way, you can certainly do that as well. By folder, we can do things like it says here, exclude deleted items, have certain folders in scope, do other matching items here. Now the regex is kind of complex. You want to be doing this and actually running some tests when you do these type of things. But you can certainly do this. Some of the easier ones here is these deleted items. We don't want to migrate deleted items, so we'll actually just pump that in there. Oops, I didn't quite correct, but I know what it is. It's just that. So it's pretty easy to do. So that's all good. I will just jump back into that advanced options and have a look at source and destination. Now this is an interesting one because the way Gmail works, obviously we have labels instead of folders like we do with the Office 365 side. So what it'll do is it'll convert the labels to folders, and you can, if you've got quite a large set of mail to bring over and somebody's very good at putting lots of labels, it's going to create those emails in all of those folders as well. So you could end up with a 50 gig mailbox suddenly becoming an 80 gig mailbox when you migrate it across to 365. So it's worth keeping an eye on that and making sure that, that those folder sizes don't blow out. What you can do is you can convert labels to categories instead, and that will obviously put them all in the inbox, and of course then you get the categories assigned. So there's two ways to handle that type of thing. And also we can tell it to skip suggested contacts, or we can migrate them, up to you there. And also we can say migrate the data into, say, an archive. You might want to just say, hey, we're starting off with a brand new 365 mailbox, it's good, but your archive is going to have all your old Gmail in it, and that's an option to do that as well. So that's obviously good. And the other things about how many licenses to consume, because you migrate up to 50 gig per license that you purchase with MigrationWiz. So if a mailbox was 80 gig in size, you're going to allow it to consume more than one license to get that done. So we'll just save on those and come back to our main screen. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to kick off Russell for migration. We're going to do a pre-stage with Russell. So we'll just kick that off for pre-stage. And you can see here, it's using the licenses correctly because of that user bundle we've done here. And we're just going to migrate the mail. Now in a pre-stage environment, you don't pre-stage calendar, contacts, tasks, and all of that. There's really no point. They're pretty small in terms of data size. They'll push when you do a full migration, no problem at all. So our pre-migration is just going to be mail. And you can see here, we want to bring things from 30 days ago or a specific time. Now in this particular case, they're quite new. So if I said anything older than 30 days, it's not going to do anything. The mailboxes in Gmail are under that. So I'm going to put a specific time, and I'm going to say anything going from December 5th, and we'll put in 2022, and we'll put 00 is there, and we'll do that. We can also schedule it to start at a certain time as well, to say when do we want to kick this off. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to say start migration and get that underway. Now, as that starts for Russell, I do want to jump into the Office 365 mailbox for him, which you can see here. And if I logged on as Russell, you can see it is empty. Now, when I'm doing the first tests on these migrations, I like to have one of them open. We'll probably have a test mailbox that we can migrate first. But what I want to see is, I want to see mail appearing. That's the, like I sometimes say, proof of the pudding is I want to see mail in there. So let's await that coming in and keep an eye on that migration screen in here for the progress. Now I like to just hit refresh. You can say it's submitted. That's submitted into the back end of MigrationWiz. It's going to go off and get in the queue and actually get processed for us. But once that starts to move, you'll see the progress bar. It'll go from submitted into a queued state, and then you get the processing and you'll get the bar, and you can really see what the data movement is like there. So just keeping an eye on the status, so you can see now it's gone to a queued state, which is looking good. All right, so let's look at how this is doing. Let's have a quick refresh. And you can see, yep, that's chugging along nicely. How much is it migrated? I know his mailbox isn't particularly big, but you can see it does have data movement in there, which is good. And if we click on the user, we can see really what's going on. So this is another benefit of these migration tools, is that I can see what it's done, exactly where it's up to in any of these folders, and basically the whole mailbox. And yeah, I see it's all ticking over quite nicely. So let's have a look at his mailbox and see what it looks like so far. Obviously it hasn't quite finished, but you can see that it does have mail in there, which is really good to see. So I don't think that one will be particularly long to migrate. Now, if we have a look at his Gmail, you'll see that he's got mail from December 2nd and then a few from today. And the stuff from today is not there. Now, that's obviously because we're doing the pre-stage. We told it to have that cutoff date, and that's what the pre-stage is meant to do, get everything ready for us in there. So back to our main screen here, what I'm going to do with these is I'm going to take Kevin and Ellie, and I'm going to kick those off as well. Do a pre-stage, and all well and good. We'll do that from a specific time. We'll do that from the same timing. Excuse me, December 5, 2022, which will be the 0 and 0. And we get that in there. We can hit the start migration, and you can see they're submitted as well. So we'll let that run for a little bit, and we'll just come back when that one has completed. So there, it looks like everybody's completed their pre-stage. So all the data is across. So now it's come around the time where we're going to kick off this full migration and get them onto 365 correctly. The first thing we're going to do is change the DNS. We're going to point the MX records away from Google across to Microsoft 365. So that's a pretty easy task to do. We're just going to add DNS management there, and we'll take these entries and we'll replace them with the correct Office 365 ones. Now, the easiest way to find those is if you go into the center here, go into domains and have a look at those. Now we look at Selenium.com, look at our DNS records. It is going to complain because they are incorrect currently as far as Office 365 is concerned. So we can fix that up. We're going to grab this one. Thank you. Awesome. And we'll pop that in. We'll add that in as a record. MX record there, priority 0, and push that in. Add that. Now what we do is we will now delete all of these Google entries, like so. Like those, all good. Now we'll just mess with our text record. Now I think we can actually delete these. Sometimes these Google ones don't pop out particularly easily, so let's just delete that one, because obviously that one there is linked to that one. It was a subdomain of it, so we should be able to do this. Sometimes we have to just edit them instead. Yeah, so those items. So we just edit that one there. Direct domain. See what we need to put in there. Yep. Thank you. Good. DNS. And replaced. Save that. Done, so that's all okay. And auto discover is still there, so that's good. So now we're pointing correctly at Office 365. If we go back in here, we can just do a quick check health. Now, I'm assuming things are going to happen very, very quickly, and normally DNS records do. If we do that a couple of times, chances are it's going to be done like that. But there is a way to check how your DNS is propagating throughout the entire planet. So there's a website you can go to. Let me just put that in for you. It is dnschecker.org. And in here, you can put in selenium.com, and we can tell it we want to look up the MX record. And what it'll do is it will search a lot of DNS boxes all over the globe, and just to see what it looks like. And you can see here that that entry has propagated out. Very useful tool just to see exactly how far your DNS has got. So we're good with that one. So now we've got our DNS cutover done. It means that mail is going to be going into those mailboxes. So we can just run a quick check on that one. We'll do a quick check on Russell and make sure that that is the case. So just quite quickly. That, nothing else to put in there. Send that off, and let's click into his mailbox. Expecting to see very shortly. There we go. email turned up. So the MX records are working. 365 is now live, and it did not appear in here, which is good. Okay, so now let's go back into the MigrationWiz console, and we're going to select everybody, and we're going to kick off the full migration this time. And you can see it uses the same licenses. We're not using any extra ones. We can obviously we'll just use the standard ones it's got. We might say, you know, if we're not going to watch it, we could kick it off at a certain time tonight. But everybody's live now. We can just hit the start migration, and away we go. Now I will go back to his mailbox just quickly for you, because what I want to show you is that we have currently no calendar entries and no contacts in there. If we keep that open and down here, I'm expecting to see some come across as part of this full migration that we're doing. So we can refresh. Obviously still submitted. We wait for them to be queued and then processed, but that will happen fairly quickly. And we'll go back and look at Russell after that. So everybody's done. It's all completed. So let's have a look at Russell's mailbox now. So in the inbox, you can see there's the mail we sent earlier, plus the additional couple that we were expecting to get, which is good. I'll have a look at the calendar now. Yep, we've got our 2 meetings popped in there nicely, and I'm expecting a contact record as well. Yep, there we go. So it has migrated everything over. We can look at the stats of the migration here as well, and we'll be able to see exactly what it's done. So calendar entries there, and you can see contacts as well, which is good. So really, yes, we'll consider this one to be successful. Like you've seen, MX records are pointing, so they are now live and working on Microsoft 365 with all of their Google Mail in their mailboxes. That concludes the session for the Google Workspace to Microsoft 365 demonstration. That was helpful in the setup of both the Google side and the Microsoft side. And thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.